Is your aphasia, is it worse at some times of the day? Is it better at some times of the day? When is the best time for it?
At the end of the day, particularly if I've worked, and when I'm tired, when I'm stressed, when I'm excited, it raises the ugly head. So yeah, so any time, but particularly at the end of the day, and particularly, so I work 3 days a week now, and I work 3 days in a row. By the Thursday, my aphasia really plays up.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to episode 205 of the Recovery After Stroke podcast. Thanks to everybody who's reached out so far and asked to be a guest on the show. I really appreciate it. It just makes my life a little bit easier when people reach out and offer to be on the show. And actually, it's a really good experience that people do come on the show, share their story. It makes a massive difference to them and their recovery. And maybe to be able to share your story, it will be a good thing for you too. So if you are a stroke survivor with a story to share about your experience with stroke, and you've been thinking about reaching out to be a guest on the show, but we're waiting for the right time to reach out or for the right sign, this is it. If you go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact, you will find a form that you can fill out to apply to be a guest on the show. As soon as I receive the form, I will respond with more details on how you can choose a time that works for you and me to meet over Zoom. Now, my guest today is Shannon Nelson, an ischemic stroke survivor who, at 45, is living with aphasia. Shannon Nelson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much for joining me. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
So I went to bed as normal on the Sunday night. It was Mother's Day 2018, and I was fine. And then I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the toilet, and I was fine then. And then I woke up again at 5:30, and I was thrashing around in bed, and then I fell out of bed. And my husband, Stuart, tried to rushed around the bed and tried to pick me up, and he couldn't. And he recognised my stroke straight away. So I had the facial droop, I couldn't lift my arms, and I couldn't speak. And I remember him saying to the 000 operator, I think my wife is having a stroke. So the ambulance officers arrived about 10 minutes later, and they agreed with him. And then because I was between the bed and the window, they strapped me into a hover mat and dragged me down the hallway of a house. And then I saw Gemma, my daughter, holding the dog in the doorway of her room, and I began to cry. And I said to myself, I might not get through this. So I arrived at Box Hill approximately 6 a.m. and I was diagnosed. I was met by the stroke team, and I was diagnosed with a left middle cerebral artery stroke. It was a clot. So I had the clot busting therapy at 6:20, and then I was transferred to Royal Melbourne Hospital for clot retrieval. And the clot was retrieved at 7:35 a.m. So lucky Stuart heard me get up to the toilet because I was within the 4.5 hours of the clot placing therapy.
Yeah, pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
Do they know what the cause of the stroke was, of the clot?
I think I had a echocardiogram with a Bible study at Royal Melbourne and at Box Hill, and they found a hole in my heart. So,
did you have any indication? Did you know at all about the hole in your heart? Did you have any symptoms around that? And the stroke was the first symptom that you had that you became aware of the PFO.
Yeah.
So you've gone to Box Hill Hospital initially, and then did you end up at the Royal Melbourne Hospital? Did they transfer you for some reason?
Yeah, because they wanted, so Box Hill doesn't do clot retrievals. So they transferred me to Box Hill, Royal Melbourne, to do the clot retrieval.
Yeah. And at 45, would you have considered yourself pretty healthy otherwise?
Well, yeah. I had weight loss surgery 2.5 years beforehand. So I was under 70 kilos.
Yeah.
So I was walking most days. So yeah.
So it sounds like you were on a journey a little bit earlier to become healthier. And
yeah.
do you think that that journey that you went on helped you in your recovery?
Absolutely. I've said all along, if I didn't have the weight loss surgery, I would have been dead, or I would have been in a nursing home, because I was fit.
Yeah. So it helped you. So what's it like leaving your house, going to hospital? Were you aware of your surroundings and what was happening, or did you go there in a different state?
No, I was aware. Yeah. I was fluctuating in and out of consciences. Yeah, but I was aware. Yeah.
So when you woke up from surgery, what was it, not from surgery, when you woke up from hospital the first time, and did you have an idea that you had a stroke? Were you aware of all of that part of it?
When my husband said to this 000 operator, I think my wife is having a stroke, it dawned on me that I was having a stroke. Yeah.
When you woke up, what were you left with? What kind of deficits did you have to deal with?
Couldn't speak and paralyzed on my right side. I was walking the next day, and I was raising my hand by day 3, but I have no usable function in my right hand, and of course I'm right-handed.
Yeah. And how long has it been? How many years?
4 years.
And where's your right hand now? Are you able to use the right hand?
Oh yeah, I'm using the right hand. I type at work. I use writing. 6 or 7 months after my stroke, I wrote 35 Christmas cards with my right hand. I was determined to get my right hand function back.
Did the writing look terrible, or was it decent?
It was fairly decent, actually. Yeah.
That's good. So people on the other end knew that it was a letter from Shannon, and they knew what you were saying. They didn't.
Yeah. And I wrote on each Christmas card, I'm writing this with my right hand.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was a big deal. It sounds like it was a really big deal for you to write those Christmas cards out, send them off.
Yeah. And I addressed them all with my right hand as well.
So is that something that you were looking forward to? Did that just come up out of nowhere? You decided that that's what you're going to do and give it a try? Or were you really impacted by the thought and the knowledge that your right-hand side wasn't working as it did prior to the stroke?
I used to practice with my left hand writing before my stroke. So I was able to write with my left hand. So the handy thing they gave me was a whiteboard in the hospital on the Thursday. So, and I was able to use my left hand. So I was finally able to communicate with my family and the doctors. But I did weekend, a Friday and Saturday, what do we call it? My aphasia is coming out now.
Therapy? Therapy?
No, well, it was sort of like a 2-day course, therapy course. So
like training.
And yeah. So the object, it was run by a OT and a physio, and it was it got me back into handwriting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why would somebody practice writing with their left hand, even though they don't need to before the stroke? What's going on in your mind there? Just something for fun?
I don't know. Fun? I don't know. Yeah.
Why not?
I'm strange like that.
You're strange like that. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, it's kind of cool to be able to write with both hands. I get it. But I've never met anyone that said, I'm just going to start writing with my left hand one day just because they felt like it, or their opposite hand.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
I needed it at some time down the track, which I did.
It sounds like you were preempting something and you were planning ahead, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that worked out. Good on you. Well done. So clearly you lost your ability to speak, and then...
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
Was that ability to speak lost because of issues with your vocal cords? I know some people who suffer loss of speech, it's an issue with the vocal cords, the strength and the deficit is there, or was yours cognitive totally aphasia?
Yeah, Apraxia. So Apraxia is defined as having difficulty planning and using the muscles during speech. So I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't get the words out. So I slipped out the F word in frustration at my husband the day before I actually spoke deliberately So the first words I said was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the speech therapist, I mirrored the speech therapists. So, and then, yeah. So I knew what to say, but I just couldn't get the words out.
Which was that F word again? Can you repeat the F word for me?
No. F-U-C-K. yeah. So yeah.
So you got that out. Was that the first word you said?
Yeah.
How rude.
The day before I actually spoke. So yeah.
How rude.
But I couldn't repeat it. So yeah.
You couldn't repeat it because you didn't want to, or
because it was an automatic so yeah. So I was so frustrated with my husband because he was trying to finish my sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of my pet hates is when people try and finish a sentence. I know that sometimes with people with aphasia, when they can't come up with the word, there's this real urge to finish the person's sentence or to give them information that might help them get there. So is it helpful sometimes when people do that, or is it always better to just let the person go through that process?
I don't mind because my family and friends have learnt to be patient with me and let me speak. But in the workplace, I just let it go. So, yeah.
I get really frustrated when you see adults answering for children. So I love hanging out with young kids when we get together with families that have got young kids and all that. And I'll go up to them and we'll start a conversation. And then their parents will chime in and they'll come in and they'll speak on behalf of the child.
Yeah.
As if I asked the parent that question. It drives me absolutely insane. I don't know if it's my place to say, no, I don't want you to answer the question for your child. I want your child to answer the question in case they get offended or something like that. I don't know how to handle it, but I just can't understand why it's necessary for the adult to get involved in that conversation, especially when the conversation is not with them.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but yeah, I just in the workplace I don't pull them up. Yeah. But in the community, I say to people, bear with me. I've got aphasia, I've had a stroke, just bear with me, I'll get the words out eventually.
And at home, after 4 years, are you still reminding everyone to hang on a sec, just wait?
Yeah, well, I say thingo a lot because my the aphasia is between verbs and nouns, and I say thingo a lot. And my son Sean, who slept through the whole ordeal, he often reminds me, Mum, I don't speak stroke. So, but yeah. And I say to my husband now and then, just let me get the words out. So yeah. So they've learned.
Yeah. It's a difficult adjustment for them, I imagine, because they don't understand stroke. They definitely don't understand apraxia. They definitely don't understand aphasia. And they are just going back into their normal mode of the same pace that they always spoke to you at and the same way you always spoke back. So it's a real challenge for them to adjust, even though it's been 4 years, compared to how long they've both known you for. It's only been a short amount of time.
Yeah, exactly.
And often they're not speaking to people with aphasia. Most of the rest of society doesn't have aphasia. So they're having to adjust backwards and forwards.
Yeah. And I think we've adjusted to a new kind of normal, but I think my children see me in the same light as before my stroke. So they've don't treat me any differently now. We joke and we laugh. So yeah.
Does aphasia interfere with writing? So I'm completely oblivious. I don't know about aphasia. So when you're trying to speak, words don't come out. You know what you want to say, but when you're writing them, do they get stuck in the same way?
No, my right. So aphasia is a language disorder that affects reading, writing, numbers, and it can be in speech. It can be a combination of the two, but my aphasia is speaking, but my numbers are fine and that sort of thing. In saying that, I can't add it up in my head anymore. I used to be really good at maths, but I have to write when simple maths, I have to write the numbers down now. But my reading wasn't affected and my comprehension wasn't affected as well, also.
So your numbers, when you're writing them down, they add up correctly, and then your brain doesn't know that the numbers are correct?
Yeah.
But doing it in your head, you don't know how to get to the correct number.
I can do simple, so 8 plus 5 equals 13, but when I get larger numbers or subtracting, I have to write them down.
Okay, so you write them down, you look at that, you know it's the correct answer.
Yeah.
Because you know numbers and basic numbers and maths.
Yeah.
But when you're doing, say, 27 plus 37,
I have to write that down.
Right. To do that in your head, you can't get to the answer.
Well, I could. So 27 plus 37 is 64. But I used to do it a lot quicker.
You did it faster than I would have done it.
Well, yeah. So,
okay. So there are some numbers, just because they're harder to get to or it takes longer to get to, you just prefer to write them down.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that way, does writing that down also give you is it a memory, any memory issues there? Does it also then give you the memory on the paper?
No, not really. So yeah, I don't have any memory issues. So I write everything down, or I put a reminder in my phone or that sort of thing, but my long-term memory wasn't affected at all. So
So how about people that don't understand about stroke or don't know you've had a stroke, don't know about your aphasia, and then they come to you to talk to you? Do you often come across people who slow their speech down or think that you're intellectually impacted by the stroke?
No. So I worked really hard to get my speech back. So in the beginning, I felt that people thought I was stupid, but now they can't tell.
Yeah.
And so I did I'm a stroke safe ambassador for the Stroke Foundation, and I was doing a talk last month for a retirement village, and a doctor came up afterwards, and he walked in late, and he said, "I knew you had a stroke. I could tell." But other lay people can't.
Yeah, understand.
Yeah.
Is your aphasia, is it worse at some times of the day? Is it better at some times of the day? When is the best time for it?
At the end of the day, particularly if I've worked, and when I'm tired, when I'm stressed, when I'm excited, it raises the ugly head. So yeah. So any time, but particularly at the end of the day, and particularly, so I work 3 days a week now, and I work 3 days in a row. By the Thursday, my aphasia really plays up. So yeah.
Okay, so it even gets worse as the week gets on. Okay, so Monday is your best day.
Yeah.
And then by Thursday, it's we'll call it at its worst, but it's when it's more prevalent.
Yeah, exactly. The word finding is particularly difficult on Thursday nights, and so it's fine on Friday because I've had a rest, but particularly on Thursdays nights, it's really bad. Yeah.
I'm smiling, but the reason why I'm smiling is because I relate to that.
Yeah.
I know I don't have aphasia or any of those challenges with my speech, although my wife sometimes think I do, and sometimes I do kind of like, and then I kept going again, like I pause and then I get going again. And for me, it's not difficulty finding the words, but it's just there has to be like, I have to rest for a little bit in between the previous word and this word. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but I know with my other deficits, I'm really good in the morning, and then by middle of the afternoon or by the end of the day, the deficits are starting to play up. If I've missed out on sleep the night before, or if I've had a couple of days of, light sleep or not enough sleep, then my deficits on that next third day are really playing up the most, and I notice them the most. Nobody sees them still. People still don't see my deficits, but I really feel them. And that's when they're on my mind the most. So sometimes I don't think about my deficits at all.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, wow, the leg's really feeling weird today, or my arm's feeling really weird.
Yeah.
Do you have days where the aphasia is on your mind and you're overthinking it, or it's bothering you, and then some days where you don't?
Particularly if I haven't slept the night before, like you. So, and then I just I'll go to work or I'll get up, but I don't talk much that day. Yeah.
And is that a conscious effort to rest your talking part of your brain?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a pretty good strategy though, isn't it? Because you're becoming aware of what you need to do to give your brain a rest, to give, say, the connections or the pathways to your mouth and your brain a rest from being over exerted.
Yeah, exactly. So
I like that. And then is it different for other, how do people around you comprehend that? Because do they go, why isn't she talking today? Is she sad? Is there something wrong? What do they do?
yeah, I had a day like that this week, and they were concerned, and I said, oh, I'm fine. And they said, oh, will you tell me if something's wrong? And I said, no, actually, but yeah, I was just tired and I just couldn't speak. Yeah.
And would you say it like that? I'm tired and I can't speak at the moment.
Not really. So I didn't, but yeah, I just said, I'm fine. They said, oh, what's wrong? And I said, oh, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm fine. But yeah, I just felt tired.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know that experience. I think the problem is the question that people ask, because then we default to that standard answer.
Yeah.
What's wrong? Nothing, because nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine.
I've had a stroke. That's all that's wrong with me today.
Yeah. Whereas if they asked a better question, like, are you having a tired day today, or are you having a rest day today, or whatever the question is, that would allow you to have a better conversation with them about what's going on.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm.
I like that. I like the difference in that part of the question and the answer in the response.
Yeah.
It's they're going to, she's somebody who's had a stroke. They are remembering that you've had a stroke.
Yeah.
They are seeing you behave differently, and they are going, oh my God, is it another stroke? What's happening with her?
Well, so I went back to work 4 months and 3 weeks after my stroke. I had a graded re-entry to work, and I started off 5 hours a day, 3 days a week. So I was in nursing allocations at the time. So I was back at work full time after 10 months. And then I was in an allocation shift 2 days in a row. So I worked the Tuesday morning and then the Wednesday morning. So it's a lot of speaking on the phone doing allocations. So you're ringing up people to agencies and bank staff and pool staff to tell them their wards or put out bookings. And then by the next morning, I work Monday in my normal job, allocations on the Tuesday starting at 5:30 and allocations on the Wednesday starting at 5:30. And by 10 a.m. on the Wednesday morning, I was slurring my words. So I took a phone call from a nurse unit manager, and she said, are you okay? Because I was slurring my words, obviously. And I said, yeah, I just really fatigued. And she goes, what's wrong? And I said, I had a stroke 10 months ago or a year ago. Oh, it was 10 months. And she said, no, I thought you were having another one.
Oh, gosh.
She was going to ring 000. Yeah.
And that's
because
a lovely
I was
thought.
slurring my words that much.
Yeah. That's a lovely thought, though, because at least she knows the signs and she's checking in with you and she's getting a response.
Yeah.
And thankfully you were able to say, that you were tired.
Yeah.
And that would have made her feel better about your situation. It sounds like It sounds like, Shannon, maybe what's a great idea would be is to have like a sign that you put on your computer monitor at work saying, today I'm resting my brain or my voice, or I'm
Yeah.
tired, or I haven't slept for
Yeah.
3 days, just so that you
Yeah.
can give people a bit of feedback
Yeah.
or updates.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
take that on board.
Yeah. And it's an anxiety that people also have. I often talk about with stroke survivors that their anxiety about having another stroke, but then your colleagues and your loved ones are also potentially having anxiety over the fact that you might be experiencing another one. Or
Yeah. Yeah. But I had the PFO closed before I went back to work.
yeah.
So I was, before I had the PFO closed, I was actually anxious about having another stroke because I think a clot broke off, traveled across the hole in my heart and flicked up to my brain. Yeah.
After the PFO was closed, did you notice a difference in your body, in yourself, in your heart in any way? Did you know like a before and after version of you?
No. I had no idea I had the hole in the heart. Yeah. And I've had surgeries before. I had three surgeries prior. I gave birth to 2 children and they didn't pick it up.
Yeah, maybe they're not looking for it and therefore it doesn't really come up if you're not looking for it or something like that. So
the surgeon, the cardiologist who closed my hole in the heart said it's not the biggest hole I'd plugged. So, okay. Yeah, it was really, yeah. So,
one of those things.
Yeah.
How old was your son at the time?
17 and my daughter was 16. So Sean was doing BCE at the time.
Was he doing the last year of school or?
Yeah, last year of school.
And your daughter would have been in year 10?
Year 10, yeah.
Yeah, okay. How did they cope with it all? How did they deal with knowing their mum was unwell and heading to hospital, etc.?
So they didn't talk, well, so Gemma woke up Sean at 7 o'clock and she'd heard from Stuart that I'd had a stroke. So Sean, she woke up Sean at 7 o'clock and she told Sean that mum's had a stroke and they went off to school like normal. Yeah.
Is that because they had no idea what a stroke was, or is that just because that was the best thing to do?
Because Stuart told them to go off to school and act as though it was a normal day.
Is that a good move? Did he do the right thing, or is he in trouble for that?
I think so.
Okay, good. I think that's the best move.
Yeah. And they went to school all through my recovery. And so they just, Sean went to work, Gemma went to work. So they just behaved as though it was normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the idea of that because therefore that means that they are going about life as normal. They are probably still concerned, but they're not being anxious. They haven't got a lot of time to overthink things.
Yeah.
And they're just dealing with what's coming as necessary rather than trying to solve all the problems that might come up going forward that may never come up, right?
We had, so I got a mental health plan from my GP about 2 months afterwards.
And that's for seeing a psychologist, right?
Yeah. So I felt I wasn't coping because I couldn't say the word monotony. So yeah, I never used it anyway. So yeah.
Say it again.
Monotony. Yeah, I can't say it anymore. Monotony.
Nice.
So yeah. So I had a meltdown, and so I threw books and that sort of thing, cried, and then I went off to get a mental health plan from my GP. So I had 3 visits by myself, 1 with Stuart and 1 family therapy session. So, and that was, I think that was good. So yeah.
I did something similar after my first episode with a brain hemorrhage. I think it was maybe in less than 10 days after I was in hospital, because the first time I was in for a week and then released, I was in therapy with my wife.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think I went a few times with my kids, etc. But I've been going to therapy since I was 25 anyway. So it wasn't anything new to me, but it was something that I just did. What about you, though? Was that enough therapy, mental health therapy sessions? Do you feel like more would have been better? Where were you at with that?
So I joined a sleep and fatigue study in 2019, and I got neuropsych therapy through the sleep and fatigue study. And I continue to see my neuropsych after that. And then I also see the neuropsych once a month or once every 6 weeks through NDIS. So I have the same neuropsych that I saw at the sleep and fatigue study.
Yeah, so it sounds like you did put a fair bit of work into making sure that certain things were okay, that you were managing and you were coping with everything. Why did the word monotony? Why was that the word that was the one that sent you over the edge?
It was so I was doing word lists, and that's the word that I struggled with, and that's the straw that broke the camel's back, as they say.
Everyone has their limits, and yours was monotony.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that.
Or was it a monotonous task I was doing at the time? I think that was the
I understand. What's something that has been placed on hold because of your stroke, or was placed on hold that you're doing now? Was it interfering with stuff that you were in the middle of doing that it stopped you from doing?
No, not really. So not really. I've been overseas since my stroke. But so I was an avid walker before my stroke. So 5 months after my stroke, I walked the 5Ks in the Melbourne Marathon with my family and raised money for the Stroke Foundation. And then we decided to do the Melbourne Marathon in 2019 as well. So it's 10 weeks before I signed up for the 10K, and 10 weeks beforehand, I wasn't a runner before my stroke, and I ran the 10Ks in the Melbourne Marathon with my family. Sean and Gemma, my children, walked, and Stuart, my husband, ran. So yeah. And then I decided, because of COVID, I decided I was going to do the toughest half marathon in 2020, but COVID hit. So hopefully I'll do it this year. I'll walk and run it in Tasmania, the Point to Pinnacle. So yeah, that's the only thing, but that's because of COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the stroke anniversary, is it something that you celebrate, or is it something that you prefer not to mark?
So the first year I celebrated, I didn't drink for a year to allow my brain to heal. So I celebrated with my friends and my family, and I bought a bottle of Cristal champagne and drank that all day.
Did that make the aphasia better or worse?
Yeah, I think better actually. Yeah. Drinking helps with the aphasia, and
it helps.
It
helps you with your aphasia. Is that because you're not overthinking it or something? Is that legitimate?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so drinking helps me play pool. You know, the billiards or pool.
Yeah.
Because when I'm sober, and I haven't played for many, many years, but when I'm sober and not playing and playing pool, I'm overthinking where I should put the stick, and where I should hit the ball, and how much power I should use. So I'm thinking about that process. And then when I've had a couple of drinks, I don't think about it. I just do it on instinct or more on knowing what I know about pool, because I've played it for so many years, never as a professional, just with my friends and that. So I'm far better after a few drinks than I am when I have to be completely, totally unaffected by alcohol.
I'm better after 2 champagnes, but when it gets to 4, no good.
No good.
I'm slurring my words.
Okay.
But I drank it all day, so yeah.
I wonder if anyone else out there who's had aphasia or has aphasia gets better after they have a couple of drinks. If anyone's listening and you have experienced something similar, just leave a comment in the comment section wherever you hear this podcast or watch this podcast. Let me know on Instagram, anywhere you like. Let me know. What's something that stroke has taught you? Has it taught you about life, about yourself? What has it taught you?
I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. So yeah, I'm more relaxed. It's taught me to be patient with me, and also my family and friends. And I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. So I go into Sean's room, which is an absolute pigsty. My mother says to Sean when she comes down, so they live in rural New South Wales, And my mother said to Sean, clean up your room. And I said, he's healthy. He's not doing any harm I just shut the door. So, yeah.
You shut the door knowing what's behind there.
Yeah.
And now you can just walk past it and you don't have to open the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
I value my family and friends more also.
Yeah. I can relate to that whole shut the door and not look into the room. But sometimes when I have to go into the room to speak to my son, then my eyes, they go to where all the rubbish and the junk and the clothes are. And I'm trying not to say anything about it. I'm really, really trying not to say anything about it and have a conversation with him about why I walked in the room. But sometimes I can't resist. After the conversation, I have to say something like, clean your room. And then I walk out.
I say every month or so, please clean your room. Please just vacuum. And then he puts the washing out. So he's 22 now. So
yeah. I think as long as you and he have the mum and son relationship inside your home, it's really hard to shift the dynamics of that. I noticed that with my oldest son who moved out about a year ago. Our conversation when he's at home and living in the house was the usual conversation that we had for all the 25 years that he was at home.
Yeah.
And now that he's moved out, the conversation has changed. It is different.
Yeah.
And the dynamic has changed. So there's no more me being the dad asking him to do things in the house that he should be doing. Yeah. In his own place, he handles all of that stuff. He does it anyway. Yeah. And I don't need to go into his house and say, oh, your house is a pigsty, for example, or any of that stuff. He just does. He's an adult and he acts like an adult because he isn't in that environment where there is somebody who is kind of in the hierarchy of the home, is above him in the hierarchy, whereas now we're equals.
Yeah.
Because he has he's a homemaker and I'm a homemaker, and now we're equal. And I think that's what I learned. Yeah. I appreciate that you would look forward to that. That's what I discovered when he moved out, which was because even though he was 25, I didn't want him to move out, right?
Yeah.
I wanted him to stay at home forever. But the part of me that wanted to kick him out was glad that he left. Yeah. And now that's what I've learned from it. I've learned that the dynamic has shifted. Yeah. And our relationship has taken a different level, and we don't interact like, although he's my son, we don't interact like father-son in the hierarchy. We act like father-son equals. Yeah. It's a good experience.
Yeah.
And your daughter? What about your daughter? What's she like? Is she very different to Sean?
Yeah, so Sean's more laid back. Gemma, Gemma's Gemma. So she's finding her way, I'd say. So she's 20 now. So yeah, she got into uni last year, but she dropped out after 7 weeks. It wasn't for her because she did online learning for the last year of her schooling, and it was all online learning at the start of last year. So yeah, she's working. So yeah.
Was COVID a difficult time to do stroke recovery in? Because for the first 2 years you were doing stroke recovery normally,
Yes.
and then COVID shut everything down. Did you miss out on accessing services and the things you needed?
So I didn't have therapy, traditional therapy, for 18 months. So I when I went back to work, I was in community rehab. So I was in hospital for 3.5 weeks, and then discharged to ESD, Early Supported Discharge Program for Stroke Patients, which ran for 4 weeks. So I was doing OT and speech 1 hour a day, Monday to Friday for 4 weeks. And then I see the doctor and the nurse, both centre and home-based. Then I was transferred to community rehab, and I did 2 sessions of speech a week, 1 telehealth and 1 centre-based. And then I do an OT session a week and an upper-limb group a week, so once a week. So I was discharged from speech just after I returned to work, and then I was discharged from OT at the end of the year. So I worked on my own speech therapy and OT by myself, and then my OT at the community rehab encouraged me to apply for the NDIS.
And
so
did you do any Zoom therapy?
Yes. So at the beginning, so I was denied. So I didn't have any traditional therapy in 2019, and then I was accepted to the NDIS. So I had.
That's the National Disability Insurance Scheme, right?
Yeah. And then I had 1 session in person, and then lockdown hit. So
and then in lockdown, did that move to online? Did that all those
things?
Yeah.
So I did 1 Zoom session, a fortnight speech, and my neuropsych went on to Zoom. But my OT, because I use machines for my OT, I had clinic sessions once a week.
Did you enjoy the online version of therapy compared to the regular version?
Well, no difference. Yeah.
I know my son was also had also finished school just before lockdown in 2019. So then he finished in 2018. He took a year off, and then he spent 2019 just chilling out and doing work. And then he really didn't enjoy trying to do anything for the 2 years that we were in lockdown in Melbourne and get some stuff going. So he seems like he's a little bit been impacted or delayed by the lockdowns in the things that he wanted to do. And I know for other children that were still at school, they really didn't enjoy the online version of schooling. And I know a lot of stroke survivors didn't enjoy the online version of their therapy and felt like they missed out on a lot. And
yeah, I think because I had my stroke in 2018, and then I went without therapy therapy for 12 months. I was just so thankful to get therapy again. So
yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I met you at the Night For Aphasia that was being held in Melbourne a few weeks ago now. A Night For Aphasia is an annual event run by another guest that has been on this podcast, Olivia O'Hare.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a really cool event. She's a speech therapist, and she has an organization that helps people from all backgrounds with their speech. You spoke and presented at that event. That was pretty cool. You did really well in front of a group of people, speaking about the challenges. And it was late at night, and you were drinking a couple of champagnes.
Yeah.
But you got through it really well.
Yeah.
And you've sort of taken this thing and you're turning it into a bit of a passion project where you want to raise awareness about aphasia and all those things.
And about stroke. So it can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere, any age. So I'm a nurse. So and I only treated elderly people who had strokes. So I worked in the rehab settings. So I didn't know that strokes can, well, I did, but I wasn't aware of how many strokes happen to young people. 25% of working age people have strokes. So yeah, I wasn't aware.
So you were a nurse, and you had been in situations where you were helping people that had experienced stroke, etc.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So when you went back to work, did you go back to work as a nurse?
No, I was working in nursing administration. So then I left my job last year, and then I work in an OT practice 3 days a week now, and I do one clinical nursing shift a fortnight now.
Okay.
Through an agency.
So you work in an occupational therapy practice now. In what capacity?
Admin.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
If anyone's going to understand what you're going through or the challenges that you face, it's going to be an occupational therapy organization.
I went there as a patient. So, and then I continued to do therapy once a week there. Yeah.
And then you decided to work there as well.
Yeah, well, they offered me a job.
Fantastic. So, I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate all the things that you're doing to raise awareness. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and well done on all the stuff that you're doing to raise awareness about stroke and aphasia. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks so much for joining us on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. To learn more about my guests, including links, and to download a full transcript of the entire episode, please go to recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. If you would like to support this podcast, the best way to do it is to leave a 5-star review and a few words about what the show means to you on iTunes and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, comment below the video, like the episode, and to get notifications of future episodes, subscribe to the show on the platform of your choice. Sharing the show with family and friends on social media will make it possible for people who may need this type of content to find it easier. And that may make a massive difference to someone that is on the road to recovery after their own experience stroke. Thanks again for being here and listening. I really appreciate you. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.